Hello and welcome to Dice on Ice. This is a one-shot called Scarbird's Caw, a survival game where our players are mere survivors at best, being picked at by the Scarbirds, these black crows of this region of Crifoth. We start with a certain individual. They're lying face down on the hard caked earth. They feel their skin sweaty and dry, oiled up, and just caked with grime and other debris and grit. Their body aches, covered in lesions and bruises. This individual is known by others as Bone Whisperer, a mere individual of many powers, we can say. And Bone Whisperer, what do you do as you come to consciousness in this caked earth?
Bone Whisperer would just kind of groan as the pain kind of sets in, as her consciousness kind of comes back to her. So too comes the aches, the pains. But these are not simply from old age. She knows that something else happened. And so I think for a few seconds, she would just lay there, unmoving, just listening, just to see if she can gather anything from her surroundings in that way.
The environment is eerily still, quiet. But a loud sound breaks the silence. Ka! Ka! You feel a sharp pain in your lower calf. It's what it feels like, a peck jabbing into your flesh.
Yeah, I want to, as soon as I hear that, I know that I have to get up, I have to get moving, because even though these are birds of scavenging, they are still vile and violent if they even sense the first signs of death. So, as quickly as she can, does she see her staff near her? Like within a very, very quick cursory glance on either side of her?
You would feel, as you kind of quickly kind of pat around or flail your hands about to find things on the ground, or you realize that none of your belongings that you once had, even the clothes on your back, are just mere rags. Your belongings are nowhere to be found.
And if this movement hasn't scared away the bird, she would attempt to reach behind her as quickly as possible and try and grab it by its legs.
At first, the Scarbird, you can see its oily black feathers kind of glinting and gleaming in the sunlight of this dark, large red sun casting its red glow. It hops back at your movements, but does not fly away. It's merely almost cocky in how little caution it gives you. And so, as I imagine, kind of like whip around to snatch at it, you see three others of these Scarbirds kind of fly off with your sudden movements. And you can make a straight up attack roll against this bird if you wish to grab it. A good old melee or dexterity attack roll.
Oh, I got a nat 20.
So what does this look like?
Now all my other rolls are going to be crap. So I can just imagine that she would kind of maybe feign a movement like maybe kind of slower, maybe to suggest that she can't move as quickly. And then in a flurry of motion, she would just reach back and grab this thing by its feet and kind of hold it upside down, so that it can't really reach her hand to peck at it or fly away. And then at that, she would keep gripping onto it, and smash its head on the ground, or actually probably break its neck. And while she's doing that, she would kind of look around at the other three to see if any of them were moving.
Around you, you see what remains, or what you imagine remains, of your former traveling crew. At its height, it was more than a dozen people. You were traveling along with this ramshackled, scavenged, mishmashed, jury-rigged wagon, carrying your belongings and many other survivors' belongings on this pilgrimage, you could say, to the rumored land of this rumored forest that exists beyond a mountain pass. The rumor carried it and found its way to your ears, and lo and behold, this little troop, you could say, kind of gathered. And so you see the bodies of this dozen of people around you. Most lie unmoving on the ground in pools of caked blood, some pierced by spears, some have been dismembered, their heads placed upon pikes. But you see 3 of these traveling companions that remain, that begin to stir, and each they each start to stir at the commotion of your movements and such. Starting with Argoth. What does Argoth look like as you begin to stir?
He tries to. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I'm probably my headphones. He gets up, but you can even tell he's a little wobbly. And under his breath, he says, "May the sands wash over me. And what does not kill me will make me stronger." And then you could tell from the years of surviving, it don't take long for him to gain his orientation. I assume I realize that I don't have anything on my stuff either.
Yeah, correct.
Are any of the crows around me or anybody that's moving?
Yeah, there was definitely a pair of crows pecking at your form, but as you stirred, they immediately kind of flew off. One kind of landing on one of the spears, kind of gripping onto it and perching on it to continue watching. The other just flying off to one of the other corpses to peck at.
Okay, well, I'm going to kind of check for equipment on other people is what I'm going to do.
And you can give me an investigation check here.
14.
So you can tell, with this roll of investigation, not only it seems like you or your companions they're all picked clean of belongings, but what you notice is that it seems like the important valuables or things that are worth taking have been taken. It seems like very deliberately someone went through and picked all of these bodies essentially clean of belongings that are worth anything. And you do notice that your wagon is gone, and you see what do you call it? Unmistakable tracks in the sand continuing off in a direction off farther than the eye can see. You also notice Bone Whisperer has kind of stirred and has cracked a crow against a Scarbird against the hard earth. And you see your tiefling companion, Ashmodel, and Snarl, a bestial Suri at best, also kind of stirring. Ashmodel, what do you look like as you're getting up and regaining consciousness?
Ashmodel is pushing herself up on her hands and knees, and she's kind of shaking her head to regain her consciousness, and she's going to call out, Snarl, where are you? Up.
So this hard scale Surrey kind of rouses a little bit at the sound of Ashmodel's voice, and kind of goes, and bounds over to her.
Well, at least you're still here.
And likewise, Ashmodel, you find that all of your belongings have been picked clean and scavenged by whoever left you to your fate. Now the four of you, you're conscious, you see each other as the only survivors of this incident. What happened, what feels like moments ago or days ago, you're unsure, is still a mystery to you. You do not remember or recall what happened. The only thing that reminds you that this is even real is the nagging pain of hunger in your stomachs and the thirstiness that plagues your body. As well, Ashmodel, you feel your body hungering and craving for an alternate kind of sustenance, your addiction to fiend blood. I'm going to need you to roll a d12, and that'll be for your withdrawal symptom for this day.
That is a 10.
Let me quickly pull up the PDF because I am a good DM and I totally are ready with all of the various things that I may or may not need during a session. That was sarcastic, by the way. Where are you? Here you are. So 10 is not a good result. Neither are many other numbers on the D12. So, what happens to you for this day and permanently? 10 is your body continues to become feeble and wither. You gain 2 levels of fatigue. And so, essentially, you are tired as if you have missed a few days of rest, as if, your sleep wasn't a good sleep at all. And fatigue itself at 2 levels like this gives you a certain debilitation. That is, you're overtired. You can no longer cast spells that require concentration, and your grit is reduced to 0. You have 0 grit, and you cannot concentrate on spells.
Neither of those are good things.
You can recover fatigue by sleeping. But to sleep is to have safety. You need safety to sleep, and you also need, food and water to survive the sleep. So it's not looking good for you, as you kind of have this 1-2 punch of not only the harsh world and survival of that. You also have your crippling addiction to deal with. And so, what do the 4 of you do in this graveyard, so to speak?
So there's, you said, a bunch of bodies around. Is that correct?
Yes, approximately 8 bodies.
I'm going to go over to the nearest one and start eating it.
This body had a face once. A face, you can barely recognize, given the scarring and the burning and just the blood and the scabs across their face. Multiple slashing wounds, it seems. But I doubt that would deter you as you flip the body over and just begin to devour. The meaty chunks ripping from the flesh and the bone as you just gulp them like a good old Surrey would do.
Sorry, what did you say this? Did you say what this thing was that Snarl is eating?
It was one of your former companions, Bone Whisperer. An eager survivor at best, but you can kind of see before Snarl's meal that this figure was very brutally maimed and injured before their death. Definitely slashing wounds.
Yeah, what was the race?
A human.
Human, okay. And she'd be sitting kind of cross-legged, have this Scarbird in her hand, its neck kind of limply hanging over her hand, and she'd just be kind of like plucking it, looking down, and without looking up, Everstein. Her name was Everstein.
When Snarl is done, so that he's satisfied, if there was anything left of the body, like I don't know, like an arm or anything, he would rip it off and drag it over to Ashmodel and kind of just drop it there at her feet.
So Ashmodel, you have this dismembered limb, a hand, scarred and pitted, but a intact hand with the elbow and such. Just placed at your feet by this snarling, large, imposing creature you call a companion.
Yes, Snarl, you have quite a stomach, but just give me a moment, please.
And Bone Whisperer would also like look up, see what time of day it is.
You're able
In
to
relation
easily
to-
tell that the sun is just highest in the sky. The world around you has heated up from the morning cold by just the sun, and it's midday height.
Yeah, so did you say we were just kind of like there in the middle of the desert, or?
Yeah, so I hadn't actually told you what it looked like. If you look around further as you begin to kind of regain your senses, so to speak, you're able to see just the flatlands and caked earth almost as far as the eye can see. You do notice as well the tracks of the wagon continuing off, both from where you had come and to where the wagon had kept going. It continues off in one direction, and on the other direction is this strange and dangerous place known as Devil's Teeth, a jagged field of rocks sharp like knives. Your path had wound around it, kind of on its outskirts, kind of brushing with it, but not ever entering it because of its rumored dangers. But the tracks seem to continue off away from it. Other than that, there is almost no noteworthy terrain. It's just flat and desolate. The air shimmers from the heat of the sun. It's hazy at best. You can even perhaps see strange kind of apparitions of mirages off on the edge of your vision, but you know that they're not trustworthy. What you see beyond the dry haze.
And she would kind of look around with like little to no expression for either direction. She would just say, "Well, for the rest of you, should find some sort of shelter. It's not safe to be out in the sun like this." But she would just continue to look back down at this plucked Scarbird.
Yeah, you just see the limp body of the bird down at your feet or in your hands. It's just this broken mash of flesh as you kind of smacked it. It's withered. Its bones are kind of poking through its flesh. It's very, very scrawny of a bird, one that has not had fed in a while, one that not very lucky. You've seen fatter Scarbirds, but you've also seen scrawnier ones too.
Now she kind of thinks to herself, like, meat is meat. She would eat the dead people around her if she had not known all of their names. But seeing them and thinking about and seeing Snarl kind of made her stomach churn. So she just begins prepping this Scarbird, kind of taking out the feathers and stuff like that. Waiting to see how the others what they have to say or how they react.
A fiend. I would like to find one soon.
Ah, yes. You carry the devil's curse with you. Interesting. I've never seen your type go long without it. You know, there are rumors. They say that the skin of your kind turns white if they don't get their fill. And she just kind of like looks at you more curiously than anything.
I'd rather my skin stay the color that it is.
Yes.
Well, it looks like we only have one way to head. And then I point to I forget what you called it, the crags that come up out of the ground.
Yeah, there's the Devil's Teeth is what they're called. This jagged field of rocks.
We might find a demon in there, or something worse. All I know is that it is not safe to travel during this intensive heat. I speak not for myself, but... And she looks to the tiefling. And... the other one. Charles. Argoth.
Argoth.
Yeah. You two might not fare so well.
I can walk, she says, as small little particles of dirt start rising up and traveling up her legs and over her body as she's using her Armor of Shadows to cast Mage Armor.
And your pet, does it speak?
Not very many words.
Well, what say you? Do we venture into the hot desert flatlands or into the dangerous, deadly Devil's Teeth?
My vote is for the teeth.
Okay. And she looks to Argoth.
How far does the Devil's Teeth look away from here?
It would be maybe a 4-hour walk from your current location.
Okay, and I hate to go ahead and use it, but I'm going to go ahead and use my cleric ability to stave off hunger and heat for 6 hours.
And so you channel a blessing of the sands, the desert spirits themselves, to ward off the ailments of exhaustion and sun sickness from your companions and yourself. Instantly, you feel a coolness wash over all of you as the heat is lifted from your backs and from your skin. You no longer feel this ever-pervasive heat. It's now soothing and comfortable, as if you are wading through shallows in the morning chill. It's comforting, yet still a bit concerning that you know that it'll wear off eventually. You have traveled with Argoth before, and he has done this thing before. It's probably why he was so valuable on this survivor's wagon itself. And so now with the blessing of the sand spirits, you guys trek south to the Devil's Teeth. The walk is slowed by Ashmodel's fatigue, but it takes the 4 hours as Argoth had predicted. The route itself is very, very uneventful. The flatlands let you see anything coming for miles in any direction. The only real landmark are the teeth themselves. It seems as if they would never approach, but footstep after footstep, you see them slowly getting larger. and after the long hours, you see them approach these large spires of stone and earth, like teeth, that just rise up in the sky. At a distance, you were unsure of how tall they may be, but up close, you can see they tower higher than 30 or 40 or even 50, some even 100 feet off the ground. These wicked teeth of a giant creature, they look like. They cast long shadows now that the sun has shifted in the sky. There's a whiff of sulfur and brimstone that you'd smell, the air itself turning much more odorous, I guess that's the word, filling with the odor of sulfur as you begin to approach it. It's recognizable yet distinct. There is no sound coming from within or around you besides the echoing of your footsteps.
It's too quiet, Ashmodel would murmur to herself, and the particles that are on her would extend to her hand and start to spread out to make a earthen rapier.
Snarl would kind of sniff at the air, see if he could detect anything.
Yeah, give me a perception check.
12.
You smell burnt things, burnt rocks, sulfur, brimstone, the like. Just this noxious smell. Sometimes even burns your nostrils as it enters. That's about the only thing you smell besides the dusty earth itself that's kicked up by your footsteps, as well as a recognizable sense of your companions.
But Whisper would be walking, but she would find it quite difficult. She'd be kind of hobbling more than walking, since she doesn't have her staff with her. And she would just kind of be just kind of casually, calmly looking around.
And you see the threshold of within and without these devil's teeth. It seems flat and barren on the exterior, but just inside, your vision is so obscured by the many spires. It reminds you of what you'd imagined a forest would look like. But instead of trees, these things are just rocky spires. You can't see farther than 50 feet within this region. You notice that the sand itself, the earth, changing from a kind of a reddish brown to almost a dark brown, near black color and hue. It's the dirt itself is finer, like charcoal on your fingers. If you were to kind of reach down and touch it, it dyes your skin almost permanently, making it black just from mere touching it.
She kind of muttered to herself. She says, "This place may have been quite lovely at one point." And then she would kind of pick up some of this charcoal and kind of put it in Is there like a pocket or like a pouch or something that these tattered clothes has on her?
Well, these tattered clothes are essentially the scraps that you may have worn as kind of like under your larger garb. So I imagine perhaps you may have a fold or something you could store things in, but not much.
Yeah. I would think that she might actually have probably a few pockets based on what she does
Sure,
in
yeah.
her inner garb.
I can buy that, yeah.
Just empty, But she would put this charcoal in her pocket to kind of save it for later because it has a very interesting property.
Most of the world was lovely before they came, so I've read.
Ah, yes, your creators. Yes, they must have changed a lot.
We must push forward. The sands do not wait for anyone.
And so you enter the threshold into the Devil's Teeth. It's almost nerve-wracking taking the first step. You perhaps even feel this dread, this worry of something may happen if you take a step in. It just, the gloom and the fear itself striking a chord within your cores. But the step itself brings nothing. The tension passes as you take one step, another step, and a further step. Your footsteps kicking up this fine black dust, almost making like a layer of smoke that rises about to your knee level, being kicked up, and it kind of settles in the air, forming these thin clouds. You notice that your legs are just more and more colored and dyed by this charcoal. It's just black from the knee down as you continue to progress. Ashmodel, you feel your heart throb kind of in the back of your head. It's been a long time since you've fed, and you feel your addiction attempting to take another hold at you, but you're able to push it back. For now, at least. But that taste, that warmth that you so crave, it hangs in the back of your mind.
I don't mean to push this, friends, but we must move faster.
Within the Devil's Teeth, the ground is bumpy. It's uneven. You have to descend and ascend many various hills and kind of crevices, outcroppings. You're able to find and weave your way down into a kind of a thin canyon between these teeth. This canyon provides shade cast not only by these large teeth, but by the walls of the canyon itself. You feel the sun kind of leave your vision as this area becomes more shaded and dark. Whether the darkness of the soot and charcoal itself is what's causing your obscurity of vision, but also perhaps just the lack of light. Your only indicator of what time of day it is just by looking straight up in the sky and seeing the edge of the sun kind of broken by the top of the cliff face that you're now at the bottom of. The descent is slow. You struggle to find footholds. Sometimes they break away underneath your weight, crumbling and echoing to the ground below. But you slowly make it. There is almost an inaudible rumble that Argoth feels as you continue to kind of progress further down this canyon way. A slight tremor beneath your feet.
You said I feel it?
Yes, yeah.
I want to take a second to, I almost want to say touch the ground and see if I can feel it, if it happens again, and where it's coming from.
You place a palm up on the ground and you can feel the vibrations and the tremor a little bit better. It's as you kind of notice it and pay attention to it, focusing on it and kind of, ignoring your surroundings. You notice that it's almost ever present, this thrumming, perhaps is a way of calling it. It ebbs and flows in larger or softer tremors, but it's still ever present. It seems to be coming from further down this canyon pass in the direction that you're traveling.
As I step up, something shakes the ground. It's the heartbeat of the desert. And then I start moving forward again.
It seems we have mislabeled the ribs as the teeth.
Well, we may be moving into the stomach and it's rumbling.
Snarl. You notice a set of yellow piercing eyes out of the corner of your eye, up top on the left side of this canyon ridge you're following.
Like bird eyes, or are we talking more animal?
You're unable to tell from this distance. They seem to be about 40 feet up. And in the moment that you notice them, they disappear from behind the many spires and teeth.
Snarl would grab Ashmodel's arm and just kind of let out a growl and kind of point.
Ashmodel would glance up towards where she's pointing, and Ashmodel would kind of keep some inside of the hand that doesn't have a rapier in it, in case something does decide to pop out and try to attack us. We'll be ready, Snarl. We'll be ready.
And as you look up, you're able to see a few of these black pebbles kind of loosened and tumbling down that little location on the cliff wall. They kind of skid and spatter off the side of this canyon wall and eventually come to a ground with their small little crashes and cracks as they kind of crunch and open up and crumble like small pebbles would do. The only indication that there's anything around you.
I think Snarl would start heading towards that direction to kind of check it out.
The direction itself is about 40 feet up on
Up.
this cliff face.
Is there any way to climb?
Absolutely. There's this terrain is jagged and uneven, so you could probably easily find various handholds and actual outcroppings to ascend. I would require an athletics check, but not a difficult athletics check.
That would be a 9.
9's good enough.
Snarl starts climbing. Ashmodel will call out his name. Snarl. She'll hold up 2 fingers. 2 minutes.
Arrgh!
Yeah, so Snarl, you're about halfway up this cliff face as, Ashmodel's beckoning you to stop.
Well, I'll keep going.
Your pet seems eager to die today.
Oh, he's eager to do that every day. Ashmodel would mutter under her breath as she would keep her eyes peeled for the top of the ridge in case things were to pop out and try to attack Snarl.
Not fearing death is not the same as looking for death.
So Snarl, you continue up this ridge. And as you crest it, you're meted with the same sight you've seen for the past long time. You see the same, or similar kind of just rocks and spires and teeth. You see no sign of whatever creature or trick of the eye may have happened earlier.
Snarl would look around a little bit, kind of sniff, not going quite up top of the cliff face, just kind of like enough that he could see over, and just kind of looking around, give it a little bit. If he doesn't notice anything, then he'll go back down.
And so, yeah, give me another perception check, please.
11.
Accompanying the smell of soot, burnt rock, and fire itself is a smell more perverse, more corrupt, more tainted. The smell of foul flesh and the smell of bubbling acid, as if they were mixed together in some grotesque way. This smell is almost distinctly the smell of fiendish kind.
Does Snarl know what direction the smell is coming from? Or is it just all pervasive?
It's essentially all pervasive, but definitely you're on the right track as it got much stronger once you crossed this little, I guess, what do you call it? The outcropping, the edge of the cliff. Once you kind of rise above it, you're able to catch a hint of it.
Okay, so Snarl doesn't actually see anything. He just smells this. He's going to go back down to Ashmodel.
Well, what did you find on your little adventure?
Do I need to make a roll to come back down, or is it just...
No, it's fine. It's
Okay. Yeah, so when Snarl gets back down to Ashmodel, he kind of he waves the arm that he grabbed when they left, because Ashmodel just left it on the ground, and that's kind of a waste of food. So he waves it at Ashmodel. He bites into it, and then he points with the arm up to the top of the cliff and kind of pokes Ashmodel with the arm in her belly and points up to the cliff. Pokes her again, points up to the cliff.
After a few pokes, she seems to nod understandingly. Comrades, I believe that Snarl has found the next place I'm going to get a drink.
Well, as they say, like pet, like master. If we go anywhere near a fiend, we're as good as dead. But I can understand that your judgment would be a little bit clouded.
If we don't go near a fiend, I'm as good as dead within a few days.
And you can see that she kind of like pauses as if to like think about these options. But then she's kind of eventually like she nods. Yes. That would be unfortunate. Very well. Red One. Let us see what this drink is.
And since Bone Whisperer is not exactly a young spring chicken, Ashmodel would to look at Snarl and say, "Please help her if she needs it."
Darl kind of just looks at you blankly, looks at the two of you talking basically, and is like gesturing, poking you with the arm up to the cliff, poking you with the arm up to the cliff.
Yes, I am going. And Ashmodel will walk over to the cliff and start to climb it, hopefully getting to the top.
The ascent itself is a bit tricky, but not impossible, or not even that hard. Again, yeah, an athletics check here would be required.
Yeah, and as soon as Ashmodel starts to move, Snarl is right there with her.
So, Ashmodel, the rocks and footholds have become fragile and weakened after supporting Snarl's weight and size. As you begin to climb, you test a certain foothold and it gives way, shattering the ground below as it detaches from the cliff wall. Without it, you can't really progress much higher without taking kind of a more difficult path. So you do not, fail extensively, but it just makes it now more difficult to climb. If you wish to climb up further.
Snarl, could you give me a boost?
Snarl looks at Ashmodel and is noticing that she's kind of having some difficulty, and so he kind of tries to like pull and push her up as best as he can as he's going up.
And so you'd have advantage on this one from the help of Snarl. So yeah, Ashmodel, you're able to make it up. A certain ledge was slightly out of reach, but with a shove of Snarl, you're able to kind of swing properly over and make it up just fine. As well, on a Whisperer, you're able to climb over. Your weak form still giving you difficulties, but nonetheless, this path has been helped. You kind of reach out for Ashmodel, and she kind of helps pull you up as well. Just an effort of teamwork here. Now that a certain linchpin stepping stone has kind of been broken off by Ashmodel prior. and you're all easily able to make it up to the top of the cliff. Though the way itself is very easy and stable. Although the only person who remains at the bottom is Argoth. And does he wish to join his companions ascending this cliff? Charles?
Sorry, I was muted. What was the question?
You're at the bottom of this cliff. You wanting to join your companions up at the top of this cliff as well?
Yes. What do I need to roll?
Just in athletics here. You can have advantage from your companions being able to help you up.
13.
Yeah, you're able to make it up as well. So the four of you are at the top of this ridge, or at least close enough to the top that you can easily get up. And it's just the same site as before, this field of jagged rocks that stretch high into the sky, going for as far as the eye can see, each kind of creating almost like a maze of various paths through them, each covered in a fine layer of soot and dust and charcoal that brushes off on your clothes, whatever remains of them, and your skin, kind of streaking you with black smears. It stays to be eerily quiet, however, up here. There's no sign of whatever creature caught Snarls' attention.
Are you sure your pet didn't just smell a passing rodent?
Snarl knows how to smell a fiend. He smelled them plenty of times before.
And Snarl would, try and catch the scent again. Try to pinpoint where it went.
The smell, you're able to still catch it on your nose. You smell it, and it's accompanied, now that you've kind of closer on the edge, you smell it's accompanied with a smell of decaying flesh itself. It's the raw flesh that you would hunger for, but it's just been tainted by this presence of this fiend you can smell as well. Its location, however, is obscure to you. The only sense you have is that it's further into these teeth.
Further in is like the same direction we were traveling before.
More like parallel, or not parallel, perpendicular. Kind of like further away from the canyon.
Okay, I would start heading towards that direction.
Ashmodel will follow Snarl with full faith in him.
Bone Whisperer would be grumbling to herself something about she wasn't alive for 11 years to follow around a stupid stupid pet, but yeah, stupid. But she would follow as well, kind of hobble along.
We're not waiting on me, are we?
Connor, are you muted?
Connor?
Connor number 1. Hello?
Can you hear me?
Oh no. Oh
Okay.
yeah, there we go.
Okay.
You're back.
So what did you miss? Sorry.
You didn't say anything.
Oh, okay. So, okay, cool. So, Ashmandel, you're following Snarl. Yeah, faithfully. You're just following his strange path through these spires. He's like kind of crawling up them and slithering through them and such. Almost paying no heed to the fact that you guys are a little bit less mobile, perhaps, than he is, less athletic. On this path, your foot crunches on something hard, something definitely breakable, brittle. You look down at the base of your foot, and you see what is now a broken skull. Its bones blanched by the sun, but still covered in a thick layer of soot. It's kind of black and white and patchy in areas. It's adorned with these twin horns spiraling out of its forehead. The jaw is long missing, but its teeth, you can see some missing, some broken, but some definitely sharp and jagged. The skull itself is humanoid. It is a tiefling skull.
Bone Whisperer, this seems to be your forte. What do you make of it?
So you think just because of my name, it is making a lot of assumptions. But fine. I will look at it. And she would look at them. Trying to feign a lot of what she sees or what she's doing, just kind of turning it around and stuff like that. But she would honestly try to see if she could glean anything.
And so what are you trying to glean from this skull?
Just anything she can, just how it died,
Okay.
maybe.
That would maybe perhaps a medicine check if you're kind of learning, trying to do more of a forensic analysis of the skull. If you're looking at more just at various details of it, you can do investigation. But depending on which skill you choose, will yield in different results. So let me know which skill you're choosing as well with the result.
Yeah, I think she would probably do just a medicine check. And she got a 13, so she would be smelling it, maybe the occasional lick, just to really sell it.
Yeah, so it's the strong taste of this charcoal upon your tongue. It's disgusting. It's very strong. It's piercing the taste, but you kind of have to feign through it to pretend like you know what you're doing. It tastes nasty. You kind of make a mental note to not eat the stuff in the future. The skull itself has been broken by Ashmandel's foot. You kind of see that long, kind of the cave in, the cratering of the part of its skull, a segment that's fallen in. The skull itself is not very scratched or weathered. It looks to be somewhat fresh. But it's odd. It's it's not scratched up as if it was picked. It was not picked clean by rodents or scavengers. But it does not have any, flesh on it, as if it decayed naturally. There's no signs of maggots or whatever going on. So it's kind of an odd sight. The only kind of weathering you see is just it's covered in soot from this kind of location.
Interesting. Yes. The bones, they're speaking to me. Telling me their past, present. Yes, I can see it now. She'd like close her eyes and like sway a little bit. Their whispers are long and sorrowful. Yes. This tiefling died not of natural causes, it seems, and has withered away and been reduced to bone far before its time. And then she would like hold her head. So the spirits, they are too loud. I can't focus anymore. I'm sorry. I am old. I cannot see anymore.
Well, I'm glad we know something about them.
Argoth, you notice out of the corner of your eye a single yellow eye piercing through the darkness between these teeth. In the moment that you notice it, it also disappears, swift and hidden. Its presence, you wish it was a trick of the light, but there's some nagging thought you have that what you saw was definitely real.
Snarl continues to go forward, barely noticing that Bone Whisperer and Ashmodel had kind of stopped and were looking at the bones. He would just kind of continue on, thinking that they follow.
Snarl, you'd notice more bones litter the area up ahead, almost as if they make a mound, a pile, in between three of these teeth, kind of in a vaguely triangular shape. At its center is just this mound of more than a dozen of these skeletons and various bones, assorted bones of various sizes and shapes.
Is the decaying flesh and bean smell getting stronger?
The flesh one definitely, as you find its source, poking out on top of the far side of this mound of skeleton and bone, is what seems to be a half of a skeleton and half a regular corpse. The flesh itself, not even ripped, more like it's been, I guess, flayed. There's little strands of the flesh and cloth of whatever this person was wearing. You see kind of the torso still completely fleshed, and then its base just kind of poking out, or its base kind of hidden into this mound of bones. It's an odd sight. It reminds you of something that would rip flesh off of bone, but it's far too clean and far too definitely too distinct to be just a regular predator.
And there's only the one skeleton with flesh on it?
Yeah. The other ones seem to be picked it's very clean, with no signs of like meat scraps on them.
I look around at this point, see if something piled it here, and so I'm kind of looking for whatever would have preyed upon these things, because I don't like being prey, and I'd rather be the predator. So I want to find out who it is, where they're at.
Yeah, so perception check as you really kind of like hone into your senses to figure out what's going on and who may be present.
11.
You get the sense that if there were a creature that made these, it would not be too far, but you're unable to see the creature. Still the yellow eyes kind of pierce your mind, in your memory's mind, but there's no sign of any other creature besides you and your companions following you.
And is there anything around the area besides like this mound in this triangle of spires? Is the land still just really flat? Like there's nothing else around besides the spires?
In the vicinity of these teeth are just more teeth. The ground itself is covered in lumpy rocks. It's very uneven. What you would notice, however, is there are what seems to be markings of some kind made in the soot of these teeth around you, as if something had brushed up against them and removed it. But you know that this wouldn't have been from your companions. It's off in a different direction, off further into this field of teeth. You see various of these. They're small, as if maybe a snake had made them. But they're numerous on many different teeth as well.
Okay, I turned to point these out to Ashmodel. This what I noticed that they haven't actually followed me, or
have you guys started to follow Snarl after this bone shenanigans?
After inspecting the bone, we probably would have continued onward if Snarl wasn't out of sight.
Yeah, so you're seeing Snarl just keep on going, pressing on, and maybe even disappear a bit out of view. You kind of see his tail kind of flit out of view, but he's not too far off. And so you follow and see the same sight as he does. There's just this mound of bone and skeleton just piled up, maybe 4 or 5 feet off the ground, making a hill. A hill that's, very, very morbid, but a hill nonetheless.
Bone Whisperer, I think I found the source of all of those voices.
Yes, of course. The bones, they never lie. Of course, this is... Yes. And she would look, and do they look kind of like similar to the single skeleton that she was looking at?
They're all definitely people-sized and proportioned bones. They're all, definitely not animal or like rodent or larger animal. They're all very much human or human-sized bones. You'd also notice the half-flayed corpse kind of on the one side of the pile. It's completely covered in soot, kind of masking all of its features and clothing, but you kind of just see the tendons of flesh and stuff kind of trailing off from its the end of its torso. But further, like down the torso, it's just been as the flesh just completely removed from the bone. Essentially, like halfway down the rib cage, you see, completely composed body covered in soot, but below it is just these exposed rib cages and pelvis and whatever. It's a very disturbing and unnatural sight to see.
Yeah, I think it would be something that, this place is, like, Crifoth is very morbid and very bad, but I feel like this would be pretty a special sight to see. So I'm wondering if She could roll to see if that she's ever seen or heard of something like this, since she interacts with so many people.
You can give me an intelligence check. And if you want to apply some kind of knowledge proficiency, I'll perhaps allow it if you tell me what it is.
Would I be able to do like history? I guess it
History.
doesn't really matter.
History would, if you're trying to lean more on rumors and stories than anything else. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
definitely. So that's a 16.
16. The first thing that comes to your mind when you see something like this is some kind of predatory creature. But that's kind of dashed from your mind when you notice just how strangely the meat's been separated from the bone in a very kind of articulate fashion and clean fashion. Just the way that the torso just, ends. And so your mind kind of wanders to the idea of you've heard that fiends have very strange tastes. Their desires and their hungers not really lining up properly with, regular fauna. So that's where your mind goes to, but it's a very unsure thought you may have.
Yeah, so immediately she would just say to Ashmodel, well, maybe your pet was right after all.
I've learned to not doubt his nose. Common sense, it needs work, though.
Another thing you notice, Bone Whisperer, is normally around carrion, there's always one or two or a dozen Scarbirds within the near vicinity, whether flying overhead or perched on nearby structures, trees, rocks, etc. Their lack of presence is probably what disturbs you the most, or informs you the most about the fiendish presence in this area. There's not a single bird to be found in the sky or in the rocks.
Yeah, she would like take out, that bird that she killed at the beginning that's like been plucked. Like look at it in its face. So where are you?
And I imagine that all of you have kind of gathered around this mound of bone, perhaps kind of poking at it with a rock or your foot or something. Immediately, you hear a clicking sound kind of emanating from essentially all around you. Can't tell where it's coming from. It seems to kind of dart and move. Just you're unable to pinpoint where it's really coming from. Snarl, you're facing its direction when it kind of pops out into view. Yellow eyes, two of them, domed and strange, kind of peer out from behind one of the teeth. Its face, a dark purple, covered in the black of the soot of this area. Its face is long and ends in strange tentacles. Its body is hunched, covered and armored by a large shell. It has lots of legs, too many to really count. They are long and spindly, like an insect or a spider's. It has two arms that kind of reach out from behind this, as it pulls itself out from behind this tooth. They end in large, jagged, sharp pincers. It continues to snake its way towards you, almost hypnotizing in its movements, before it lunges, darting through the air. I'd like everyone to make initiative rolls, please.
Eight.
And that is where we're going to be taking a short 10-minute break for food, drink, bathroom, etc. So we'll be back 40 after.
Sounds good.
Okie dokie.
Hey, I thought this setting was called Crifoth for the longest time. I feel kind of stupid now.
That's all right. You should be used to it by now.
Hello, hello, hello to our one viewer and to
Hello.
whichever players may be back. I wonder who our one viewer is. Shout out to you, awesome person.
I'm watching to keep up with the chat.
Oh, that'll be you. You are the one viewer. That's funny.
Jose Soto was on for at least a little bit, though.
Yeah, it was Jose. Jose's a good dude.
So is this game... What do you guys think of this game so far?
I'm enjoying the intrigue.
The spookiness of it?
Yes. It also doesn't help that I think there's a windstorm going on outside.
Ooh.
That's the most bad.
I'm really worried about a TPK here.
Well, it won't take much to kill Ash Modell, I'll tell you that much.
That's true. They have like 4 hit points or something right now. That's crazy. 5, yep.
Staying either far away or behind Snarl.
It's like your first action should be to get the heck away. Dash, dash, dash.
Probably wouldn't stay too close to Snarl, because I have a feeling he'll be right there where the danger is. So when you described the skull, all I could think of was the picture of your on the front cover of the playtest book.
It's actually the image that I was drawing off of to describe the scene. So
That's what I thought.
yeah, it's like, what does a tiefling skull look like? Oh yeah, someone drew one.
Mission accomplished.
It's kind of funny that I prepped a lot of stuff, and you guys went in the direction which contained the least amount of prep.
Sweet.
So I'm like, they won't go into a dangerous-looking, jagged field of devil's teeth. They're gonna steer
Hey.
clear of that as much as possible. And then, like, you guys are like, "Hey, let's go there." I'm like, "Okay, as you wish."
The person with the least amount of hit points is like, hey, let's go to that dangerous place.
The one with the least amount of intelligence is going, hey, let's go find this thing.
Addiction, man. The curse. Yeah.
I'm just throwing this out there. I don't have any spells to save our butt, so I hope the sorcerer does.
I think we're in a lot of trouble, actually, because our sorcerer is like next to dead.
I'm a warlock.
Oh, you're a warlock. Oh, cool. That's right. Is Bone Whisperer a sorcerer? Oh, cool, cool. That's
Yep.
Yeah, 'cause it seems like two people that decided to roll high charismas. Jeez. One of them decided to roll 3 6s in a row. What a derp. That was hilarious when I saw that. You're like, these meager scores, whatever, pretty decent. And all of a sudden, just like an 18 out of nowhere. It's like, oh, I see.
And if you listened, you could hear me swear because I was so shocked at that.
Yeah. But that was hilarious. Just like, well, we have one superhero. Everyone else is these miserable. Like Baron, if he had played, was just this miserable, no attribute higher than a -1 kind of character.
well, he had a 0 in a couple of them, didn't he?
Did he? Wow, that's impressive.
I think so. I think his con was like my same as mine.
So if we're all good to go, we can get right back into the thing of things.
Sounds good.
Starting off with Ashmodel, as this creature is just lunging out from behind the spires, its clicking sound just completely centers on its position, stopping from being all around you, and just like you notice it just leaping out. It's making these strange, loud clicking sounds, as well as just the scuttling of its feet. What do you want to do?
Ashmodel will shout out, "Snarl, down," and kind of push his head down as the charcoal zooms up towards her hand, and she thrusts it forward to launch an eldritch blast at this creature.
Awesome, yeah.
That is going to be a 16.
A 16, you're able to strike at a fleshy spot, narrowly missing its armored carapace. So your strike true on the spot that hits it.
Dealing 7 force.
And so you see that the creature itself is not really harmed by this blast, instead kind of knocked aside as it kind of dodges out of the way as it grazes its underside. It still definitely left a mark, but it took grit damage rather than blood damage.
And Ashmodel is going to slowly move back to the teeth and try to get behind some cover.
Absolutely, yeah, able to take cover, granting you essentially +2 to AC. Bone Whisperer, how do you act in this moment?
I think that Bone Whisperer would actually take like a couple of steps back. Kind of every time she sees a fiend or a demon, she's shocked. And this one is no different, but she would get her footing and kind of stare this thing down. And she would extend one bony finger towards this thing. And she'd cast immediately these like ichor would come out, and she's going to cast magic missile.
Oh, sweet. How much damage does that do?
12.
Holy crake. So these balls of ichor just like Actually, you can go ahead and describe it as it takes this 12 damage.
Yeah, like these balls of like ichor just come out of seemingly from like her this bony scaly hand and just kind of splat against these this beast, and just you hear this kind of like steaming look coming off from where it hit.
Yeah, so these pelts of magic strike its backside and its carapace and graze its side. It's grazing wounds, but nonetheless wounds. And if that is it's into your turn, it is going to continue its launch and pounce directly at you, Bone Whisperer, as it reaches out with its pincers and tries to grab you. And it would beat your AC just barely. I got a 13. And so it lifts you off the ground in these pincers. You can feel them squeezing on either side of your rib. It wounds and kind of wins you in this crushing. You take 2 points of grit damage. Has really injured you at this point, but definitely has hurt your stamina as you resist it. But you're grappled, essentially. You're going to need a strength check or a dexterity check to free yourself in further rounds. Snarl. What do you do?
So this thing has just closed in on us and has attacked one of my party members, right? Like
Yep.
So he's right there. I'm going to I guess I'm going to claw at him because I don't have any weapons at this point except for the arm I've got. But I think I'd rather claw. Use one of my hands and just kind of rake him. So that's an unarmed attack, right?
Yeah, you have the option of using your bite as a better unarmed attack.
That is very true. I will do that.
D6 or D4, I can't remember which one. I think it's D6.
D6, yeah, you're right. I'll do that instead. I will try to bite him. This weird thing. Ooh, I finally rolled one. I had a 23.
Yeah, absolutely. You're able to strike true with your teeth.
Okay, so Snarl growls and tears into the guy. Its flesh, dealing 4 points of piercing damage.
You latch onto the same claw that's gripping Bone Whisperer, and it kind of flails it to knock you off. Also kind of flailing around Bone Whisperer in the process. As it shakes your teeth off its forearm. You can kind of see the dents in the carapace where your mouth had landed prior. Is that the extent of your turn?
Yeah, I'm going to try to get around to a different side of him, so that I'm not in the way of my of Ashmodel, her and her fancy things that she shoots out of her hands because they kind of hurt when they hit. So I'm kind of going to go to the other side. I mean, this is kind of how we've always fought before.
Sounds good. Yeah, you're able to come up and bring can go up on its tail. You see, its form is actually long and almost like a centipede, stretching about 10 feet off from its head. It's all these various multi-segmented legs, sharp and pointed, kind of piercing and grabbing the ground beneath. It's probably maybe 20 or so legs. Should be able to find like a spot along its side, far from the reach of its claws, you imagine, and far from being in line of fire from Ashmodel's magic. Argoth, you're also in this fight. What do you want to do?
I'm going to cast command from the power of the sands, from the land, the might. I demand that you drop her. Wisdom save.
And it got a total of 18 on its wisdom save.
Son of a bitch. Well,
So-
that's my turn.
Yeah, so it shakes off, or your magic of your command is unable to get any kind of firm grasp on this creature. It shakes it off with ease. Ashmodel, what do you want to do?
Ashmodel is going to look up at the top of the claw the tooth that she's hiding behind, and she's going to mutter some words to her patron, and she's going to reach up with a hand, and the top portion of it is going to cut off and fly towards this creature as I cast Chill Touch. That'd be a 22 to hit.
That definitely hits.
Dealing 7 necrotic damage.
And so this hand kind of grips around, not caressing, but kind of grazing this creature, leaving behind withered skin and flesh. But this creature's just, its fiendish energy, its fiendish form resists it. So it only took half damage. So you said you did 7, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so it'll be 3 damage instead.
And I'm not sure if it matters, but it can't heal until the start of my next turn.
All right, cool. Bone Whisperer, you are in this creature's clutches. You can still act, but you just can't move. What do you want to do?
Are my arms restrained?
No, not at all. Just by your kind of your waist. You're kind of off the ground here.
Hmm. I think she would try to wriggle out of its grasp.
Okay. Yeah, just a dexterity check versus its strength check. Give me a dex roll. You can apply acrobatics if you're proficient, but I don't imagine that Bone Whisperer is much of an acrobat.
No. So I got an 8.
Yeah, that's not going to beat its 18. So you're unable to wriggle free. Its vice-like grip just remains to be strong on you.
Yeah.
And so
Is that my action? I don't
Yeah,
think I can do anything else.
that's your action. So you still have a bonus action if you have some ability you have that uses that. But
No.
cool. So it clenches its vice grip on you stronger this time, trying to crush your bone. Because you push against it, but it continues to crush you further. Doing another point of 3 grit damage to you. Its entire body kind of coils around, almost encircling you, Snarl. It begins to rear up these knife-like, needle-like legs it has and kind of stab at you with them. 2 of these legs come down like spears. One hitting you, Snarl, for 7 points of grit damage. So imagine you're barely able to kind of weave your way out in time, but it's a grazing blow, one that causes you much fatigue, more so than anything else. Snarl, what do you want to do?
Well, that hit kind of enraged Snarl, and he will basically lets out a blood-curdling growl, and uses his bonus action to go into rage. We're going to make it a frenzied rage at this point. And so he will bite this monster. Is there any way I can get up on its back? Like, is it back above anything, or because you said it was kind of like a centipede?
Yeah, I imagine it looks kind of like a centipede on this on this rear of it. Sure, you can get on its back, but its back is covered in like a thick carapace.
Okay, no, we don't want to do that then.
The underside
No,
seems to be much more exposed or fleshy.
that's where we're gonna go after. We'll bite it first and try and get to its nice meaty little center there. Read, see there. So that's a 16 to hit.
Yep, that hits.
Okay. So that'll be 7 points of piercing damage.
Yeah, so imagine you kind of like not rip apart, but like kind of push aside these spear-like legs, and kind of like dive near their base with your fanged maw.
Yeah.
A bit of black ichor kind of sprays and covers your teeth and covers your fangs from this wound. But the thing recoils and kind of pushes you off. The moment your teeth make contact, you're barely able to make much physical damage to the creature, but you definitely kind of harmed it in this way. So that would bring us to Argoth.
I'm going to move up to it and make a touch attack and try to cast, oh crap, not Cure Wounds, but the reverse. I can't think of what it's called now.
Yeah, Inflict Wounds.
Yeah. Shit. Sorry, I dropped my dice. Hold on a second. Um, 14.
A 14 would hit this creature. This creature's large, so it's no problem actually, getting contact with it.
Okay. 17 points of damage.
It's necrotic, right? Because it's inflict wounds.
Yes, sir.
And so again, you channel this magic to wither and inflict wounds upon this creature, and you can notice its vitality strain and wither from your touch. Its effectiveness, however, is stymied by its demonic and otherworldly nature. What you thought would drop any other kind of person does little to harm this, and so it does half damage,
I
being
was afraid
necrotic
of that.
damage. That brings us up to Ashmodel.
Ashmodel is going to come out of cover and yell at the fiend. Get ready for a shock, and I'm going to cast Witch Bolt at it.
Sorry, Witch Bolt?
Yeah, witch bolt.
Which bolt is that?
Ha 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 ha.
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
So that's a 19 to hit.
Yeah, that totally hits it.
Eight lightning damage. As the clouds of charcoal are around her, she kicks her feet to try and build up clouds around her and takes the charge from all the different little dust particles rubbing against each other and sends it flying into this demon.
I'm so sorry, how many lightning was it? You said 8?
8, yes.
Yeah, okay.
And then she's going to move to the next tooth.
Yeah, so the witch bolt you cast continue to kind of crackle and harm this this creature further upon the casting of spells. You kind of but the fatigue sets in and you can no longer concentrate on this spell, and it kind of dissipates almost as instantaneous as you cast it. You realize that if you had more strength, you could cause the lightning to linger more, but alas, you're too fatigued. Bone Whisperer. You can feel the grasp and clutches of this creature still hard around you. It's definitely been weakened at this point by the many attacks and assaults, but continues to stand firm.
Yeah, and so she's going to kind of rest her hands on around where this thing is holding on to her, and immediately this, like, it is blue, but it's like this greeny, almost like grotesque color that radiates from her hands, trying to get this thing to possibly recoil and let go of her. She is essentially casting Chill Touch.
Yeah, so it'd be a spell attack at disadvantage because you're right up in there.
No.
So that you're
No.
casting the spell.
I could almost imagine that it would like spread over this thing's outer armor, but it would almost dissipate in this like steam without penetrating.
Yeah, absolutely. It's completely unharming this creature. It finally brings another pinch down upon you, One Whisperer. Oh, geez. So that's a nat 20. So doing directly to blood damage instead of grit, directly to your blood, it's going to do 4 points of damage to you. Straight to your blood. And so this brings you down to below half your total, correct? So you can have a
Yes, sir.
lingering wound that happens to you. We'll decide that after this encounter ends.
If I survive.
These needle-like legs continue to bear down upon you, Snarl, as you're in the thick of things in melee. It strikes at you with these 2 needle-like legs. They both strike you with ease because you're just really close and you're able to it's able to find purchase. And so between the 2 strikes, it does a total of 8 piercing damage to you.
Okay, and I'm in my rage, so I have resistance to piercing, so I take half.
Yep.
So
4 points of great damage. This demon looks at you, Bone Whisperer, and feels your weakness of breath. It stares at you with these lifeless yellow eyes that bear almost no intelligence. And you feel your body almost almost go limp. I need you to make a Constitution saving throw, please.
I got a 10.
And so this creature does 3 points of necrotic damage to you as it begins to tear what you feel is your soul, your aged soul, from your body. Snarl, what do you want to do?
Snarl is seeing red and is going to dive underneath, hit that soft underbelly again. He's attacking recklessly, trying to bite it and get a really good grip this time. So that is a 20 to hit.
Yep.
For 6 points of piercing damage. And as a bonus action, he's going to rake out with his claw. Or can he do a bite twice? Like,
Yeah, totally.
okay, we want to do a bite. A second bite. Oh, I got a nat 20 that time.
So that attack goes automatically to blood as you find purchase in some soft underbelly part. So yeah.
So it's just rolled normally, right?
Yeah, roll damage, but it does directly to blood.
Okay, so I rolled a 1, so 5 points of piercing.
That is enough to completely expose a portion of its underbelly. This just bouts of ichor kind of spraying from it, from these puncture wounds, almost like geysers you've made. This demon begins to kind of coil up around you, dropping Bone Whisperer from its clutches, and kind of wrapping itself around you, Snarl.
Okay, and because I attack recklessly, it's going to have advantage when it attacks me.
Absolutely. Argoth, what do you want to do?
I'm going to try to cast Guiding Bolt.
Yep.
Forget that. I only rolled an 8.
So your bolt is unguided, and it goes astray. The quick, rapid movement of this creature probably is what caused you to miss, as it completely kind of recoiled away from Bone Whisperer and you and towards Snarl, who's digging deeply at its underside. And so Ashmodel, what do you want to do?
Ashmodel will come out of the cover of the tooth and strike the butt of her rapier against the devil's tooth that she was hiding behind to get a spark, and she'll bring the charcoal particles that she has close to it, and she'll send another Eldritch Blast at the creature. And that's going to be a 15 to hit.
That is enough, yes.
Taking 11 force damage.
And you can go ahead and tell me how this Eldritch Blast defeats this insectoid strange demon.
So as she launches the bolt of flame, the demon is about to go down and give Snarl a taste of his own medicine and bite him. But as the mouth opens to dig in, the fireball goes into its mouth and seems to boil itself inside as its head reels back, and it...
Yeah, you can see the flesh kind of bubbling from the inside, steam and smoke kind of hissing from its strange tentacled mouth. It lets out this wail of clicks and screams as it kind of boils from the inside out. And it lies over after a long death throw, slumping against the side, kind of cracking the stone of these teeth with its large form. And Snarl, you kind of find yourself somewhat trapped in this creature. Not, not forcefully, just, the way it is all kind of slumped around you. Ashmodel, you can feel the pulsating in the back of your mind, in the back of your head. You can taste how close it is.
She smiles as her earthen rapier disappears, and she walks up to it, and the charcoal moves up her leg and up her torso and down her arm as it forms into a black dagger that she's going to use to cut into this demon and then lick the blood off of the blade.
And so absolutely you just get this taste and the satisfaction from consuming fiend blood. This addiction you have gives you power, but also gives you weakness at the same time. And so you get to roll a d12. And that is the effect you get for this day of what the blood addiction does to you.
That's neat.
That's an 8. 8. Your body is strong and hale. Whenever you spend a hit die to recover, you roll twice and take the better result.
Cool.
And so if you
Bone
take
Whisperer.
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Bone Whisperer would just stand up from where she was. She'd been dropped, and just kind of stand up slowly and just kind of stretch. Ugh, I should have stayed in my hut. Too old for this.
And Snarl kind of just gnaws his way free from the tail that's kind of wrapped around him. It's pinning him down a little bit. He's just kind of going to eat his way out.
So this flesh tastes foul to you, and so it'd be not something that you take much pleasure in doing, and probably eat as little as possible. Just kind of squeeze your way out. It's not a difficult task at all to do. This creature is limp and dead, and would move unopposingly to your kind of pushes and shoves and such.
Okay, I kind of spit it out as I bite it. So yeah, he'll just tear his way out, because that just seems more fun.
So now the four of you stand over this corpse of a demon that you've slain proficiently yet desperately in this moment. Bone Whisperer, your ribs are broken. This is your lingering injury. And so let's see what that actually does. I couldn't have rolled better for the injury. So whenever you take an action in combat, you must make a con save. If you fail, you lose your action. Essentially, because of just how much pressure there is on your ribs and how much it weakens you. If that makes sense.
Ashmodel kind of strides forward after having ingested the fiend's blood. We could do this.
And you hear Bone Whisper just kind of like wheezing through her broken ribs. Yes, I suppose we did. But now that you've been fed, where do we go now?
Well, I decided this one. I think the next belongs to someone else.
Um, I do want to look around, see if there's anything that maybe have been left by all these dead bodies.
Yeah, you'd notice that these bodies seem to be without possessions, at least at first glance. Give me an investigation or a perception, your choice. To notice any belongings that may have been kind of covered or hidden.
Only a 12 on perception.
It's enough to catch the glint of something. As you kind of reach through the dirt, you're able to pull out and find a blade. A blade not made of stone or bone or wood or obsidian, but a blade made of metal. A dagger. And metal is very useful. It doesn't break. And so this is a very important find.
Well, I was hoping for a healing potion, but hey.
You have an iron dagger.
Ashmodel, figuring that these skulls might as well be utilized and not wasted here, would pick one up and start to sort of carve a hole into it with the dagger that she had summoned. And after she had done that, she's going to try to empty some of the demon's blood into the skulls.
Absolutely. You'd have diminishing returns as you do this. The wound kind of closing up or no longer being able to be tapped of much. And I imagine you're able to fill up 2 of these skulls. More than enough for 2 more days out in the wastes. But they are kind of difficult to kind of carry or hold. And kind of plug the hole with maybe a rock or something. So then you got these 2 demon blood potions contained within 2 skulls. Despite how little you have regained, this is almost like a gold mine of value to you. 2 days without withdrawal is 2 days that are pain-free.
I won't be complaining about for a while, friends.
That is good. Well, now that you have your fill, shall we go chase our caravan?
Yes, at this point, it seems like there's nothing else to gain from here.
Yes, we may have been set back in hours, but I think that we've most likely kept a companion.
I turn to the what is it he's called, or her character's called, the lizard.
Snarl?
Snarl.
Yeah. And I take the dagger and I go, this is probably best in your hands.
Snarl looks at you uncomprehendingly as you're speaking, but then looks down at your hands and notices you're holding out the dagger, and he then looks back up at you and then reaches for the dagger and grabs it. Kind of nods.
And then I start moving. Well, what can we see from up here?
Honestly, not much. Your long distance vision is obscured by just this wall of various, like a forest of tall teeth like rocks. So
Well, does it seem like we can walk up here, or do we need to go back down? I guess would be my question.
you definitely can most definitely find a route back the way you came through these. Definitely wouldn't be a very straight path, but still manageable.
Okay, so I start heading that direction.
And so
The Bone Whisperer would follow.
I would.
Oh, wait a minute. I do have one thought.
Okay.
That water spell, would it work on the demon? I wasn't going to say anything because I didn't think it would, but I'm just going to ask.
I'd say yes. It has a corpse. It has water.
Okay. Probably a good idea to try to use that then as my last spell.
Sounds good. So you extract a quantity of water from this creature. I think it's a die roll, correct?
Yeah. If you give me a second, I can get to it.
I have it open right here. Let's see. Had it open.
Okay.
Here you go. It is a D6. Roll a D6 for me, please. That's how much gallons of clean water you get.
3.
So you're able to pull. You kind of see it coalesce in a kind of an orb around you. This 3 gallons of water kind of floating as you slowly manage this ritual of extracting the water from this corpse. You see the creature itself kind of wither and become this dried husk through the casting of the spell.
Then I look around for the biggest, strongest femur bone I can find since I'm out of spells and need some kind of weapon, probably.
You're definitely able to find, like some kind of femur bone. Use it as a club, I'd say. And so this water you've extracted is easily drinkable right here and now, just to sustain you guys at least for the time being. You kind of feel the parchness on your tongues.
Yeah, Snarl would drink. He would kind of push right on in there and seeing the water would drink.
Ashmodale would let the dagger in her hands uncondense back into charcoal dust and slide through her hands back down onto the earth.
And so whomever drinks from this water would essentially set their thirst level back up to satiated and have no ill effects.
Well, that's enough to do that for all of us, isn't it?
Yep.
3 gallons isn't bad. That's a nice amount, actually.
Yeah, unfortunately, the tricky part for you is you know where really to put the water for the time being. So it's either like drink now or
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Yeah. So it's all 4 of you kind of drink. Cool. So all of you become quenched. You have no ill effects. So it's all nice and sustained, at least for the time being. And so you guys make your way out of the jagged field of devil's teeth. Or at least try to. So I'd like whoever is trying to guide you out to make a survival check. And if anyone's helping them, they can that person can roll with advantage if they wish. But it is very hard to keep your direction. Essentially like a forest of these long, tall teeth. So, survival check.
Well, which one of us has the best survival skill?
Snarl is okay, but there's no way he'd be leading out at this point because he doesn't know what the goal is.
Yeah, I think Bone Whisperer would try. The bones are speaking with her.
Oh.
And that is an
Sucks is there's
unnatural
nothing I can really
20.
do about your ribs either.
Yes, those bones are screaming.
Yes.
Well, I was trying to think, and you really doing a split wouldn't help. Wouldn't help. I mean, maybe helping him walk a little bit, but and I know from personal experience, ribs are. Ugh.
Yeah, I think she would hobble along very slowly. So she would probably set the pace of the group.
Imagine you'd locate the sun in the sky and tell you, and it would tell you what direction you need to go in. You're keeping track of which direction the sun was in. It was at your backs as you entered, so therefore, going towards the sun would be how you get out. You hobble along, and the sun sets over the horizon, casting this desert world of Crifoth in a dark shadow of night. The sky turns from its bright blood red to the dark, somber black of night. It's difficult to see now. The darkness just ever pervasive. The nocturnal creatures, being the Tusuri and the Tiefling, your strong eyes, your sensitive eyes can still kind of barely scrape together a sight to still kind of follow. You can still see in this dim light. And Charles, I'm not. What race is Argoth?
Ash elf.
And so yeah, as well. So all of you have dark vision. Awesome. So yeah, so despite the setting of the sun, you're still able to make out a bit of vision. It's very difficult to see now. You can only see 60 feet ahead of you, and at that, it's very, very obscured and undetailed. But nonetheless, you're able to make it out of the precipice, out of the threshold of the jagged field of the Devil's Teeth, onto the barren wasteland that is this flatlands around it. The stars in the sky, barely able to poke through the smoky, smoggy sky of Crifoth, still kind of offer a bit of guidance as to the directions you guys are going in. But soon the heat dissipates, as you continue to walk. It shrinks down from obliteratingly hot to satisfyingly cool to almost frigid as the desert heat dissipates. And you kind of lose a sense of time, almost a sense of direction with how many steps you've taken. But you find yourselves almost like tripping over the corpses of the abandoned kind of graveyard you found yourselves in hours before. You notice many small rats and rodents scurrying and picking at the bodies. The nocturnal creatures of Crifoth are much more active. There's much more wildlife going on, and in fact, it would make your progress probably even slower going back to avoid any serpents or dangerous rodents on the way back. But nonetheless, you make your way back.
Kidding? I see dinner.
Are the tracks from our caravan still here? Like, can we still make them out?
In this darker light, they're definitely harder to follow. It's the trail of them is hard. It's harder to see in this lack of light, so it'd be much more difficult, but still probably possible. Though if you were to lose the track, you're not sure if you could find it again. It's very hard to hard to make out. As well as you know from experience that traveling during the night is probably one of the most dangerous times to travel. Despite how cold it is, there's no danger of heat, but also there's so many dangers of other things in the night.
Friends, if we keep walking, it will not end well. I say we stop here for the night.
Yes, I could rest these old bones.
Snarl kind of notices that his compatriots are kind of they're stopped and they're kind of talking amongst themselves, and so he kind of just looks around and finds a nice little place to lie down and closes his eyes and kind of nods off a little bit.
You two do the same as Snarl. I will take the first watch.
I'll take the second.
And so this night is uneventful besides the scavenging of rodents and other scavenging animals amongst the corpses. You have to kind of shoo them away from your own feet as they nibble, kind of to test to see if you're actually dead. For those of you fatigued, your fatigueness resets up to untired. No longer do you suffer ill effects. However, the coming of a new day comes the coming of parchedness once again. So when you now, all four of you are parched, meaning you have disadvantage on initiative checks, as you find yourself slower to act, not as nimble, not as quick, not as responsive.
Is that considered a short rest?
That is considered a short rest, yes.
So we can spend a hit die and gain back grit points?
Absolutely, yeah. And you find, Ashmandel, that the high you got from demon blood also wearing off after this night rest.
She'll probably uncork one of the skulls and drink the blood from that,
So likewise, you get to roll a d12.
trying
See what
to
happens this time.
maintain her high. That's a 4.
4. Let's see what a 4 gives you. A 4 gives you a surge of stamina from this this drinking of blood. You roll 2d10. That's how many temporary grit points you gain, kind of increasing your maximum.
And are the grit points that I had 0 of yesterday restored today?
If you spend a hit die, absolutely.
Sweet. Yes.
Yeah. So for those of you who took grit damage, you can spend a hit die during this short rest to recover all of them, all your grit points. You don't need to roll nothing. To recover blood points, however, you have to spend long rest, which is a week of time. And so now Ashmodel feels the opposite of how she felt before. She feels very invigorated, I imagine. What did you get on that 2d10?
I got 13.
Oh, wow. Yeah. There you go. So you doubled your grit points there. And so you kind of see the dawn breaking. It's still not, the heat hasn't come yet, thankfully, but the light has. And with the light comes the scurrying away of the nocturnal creatures as the world becomes barren once more, as they slink off to their cracks and their holes in the earth, the various underground layers of these small creatures. You kind of see the decay coming onto these corpses, and all of you, please, can you give me a medicine check?
I'm sorry, was you talking to me?
Yeah, everyone gives me a medicine check.
15.
And so, Argoth and Bone Whisperer, you see something happening to these bodies, these 8 bodies all around you that you've seen happen before. Their skin has turned necrotic. They're starting oozing a lot of pus and black ichor from the various wounds they have. Is spreading what's known as the Fiend Blight. It's a phenomenon in Crifoth that afflicts the dead and the living, but the dead more so than the living. A disease that spreads like a plague. Everyone has it, to some degree. Most is benign. But when it onsets fully, a corpse is rumored to rise again, seemingly animated by this Fiend Blight. And so many people tend to cremate or burn the bodies of their deceased to prevent the Fiend Blight from latching onto their loved ones after death. You notice the Fiend Blight kind of spreading and beginning to, I guess, germinate would be the word, on these corpses, all 8 of them.
Are they in like a kind of a pile?
No, they seem very much scattered about.
So Bone Whisperer would begin the very daunting task for her of trying to get these bodies together in one kind of pile, while kind of saying, We must burn. We must burn the bodies.
Snarl,
I can light them if we get them all together.
Snarl, help her put the bodies all together. I will help our friend burn them.
Snarl looks at you. He's not quite understanding what you're asking.
Ashmodel will point at the bodies all around that are getting this blight spread across them, and she'll point to where Bone Whisperer has started piling the bodies. Those go there.
And after a little bit of gesturing from Ashmodel, Snarl gets it, and he starts pulling the bodies into a pile.
And so I'd like Snarl to make a strength check, please. Not to see if he can lift the bodies, more like how swiftly he's able to do so. As doing so kind of would take up time that is a kind of we call it a desired commodity when you're starving and kind of drying out in the wastes. And so you're able to heave and kind of pull and tug on these bodies fairly avidly and confidently and competently, forming a pseudo kind of pile, almost a pyre kind of in shape. And perhaps with the help of others, I don't imagine Bone Whisperer being much help with her broken ribs, more as a moral support than anything. An hour passes as you're able to gather up all 8 of these bodies. They're heavy, and you're fatigued in general from just this life, from this kind of poor night's sleep, but still an adequate one. And so, yeah, it takes about an hour to get all these bodies in a suitable pile.
So, Argath, we ready to make this blight burn?
Yeah, I use continual flame and light it.
And so at first the bodies kind of smolder, not quite catching flame, and then they begin to light up. Their flesh melting, fueling the fire like a candle. As just this pyre burns in front of you, the flame almost licking out at your faces if you were to stand too close. The smell of cooking meat just saturates your noses. The blade itself gives off a sickly smell, a smell that some of you may recognize from cremating your own dead. And before long, what remains of these bodies is just a burnt husk. These charred remains of what used to be.
Ashmodai would take 2 fingers and put it into the ashes and then put down chalk marks denoting that this is where some people died, and to just pay respects if possible.
By now, the sun overhead is becoming much stronger, and the full heat and effect of the sun begins to bear down upon you. This is the first stage in sun sickness, as you guys are without shelter in the beginning of the sun's heat of the day. Let me just see what happens here. Stage 1 is an hour, I believe. Yeah, so each of you would take 4 points of fire damage over the duration of this little time, as just the kind of your skin becomes kind of burnt from the sun and begins to kind of redden and peel. Sun-kissed from this direct sunlight. And for those of you with fire resistance, you can apply that. Oh, and the Susuris get to ignore that because of their double duration. That's right. You're not quite sunsick yet. But soon you will be, so. Just the Ash Elf and the Tiefling here.
So now that it's light out and we're see a lot more. What's the terrain like? Is it still just flat for as far as the eye can see?
Yeah, there's essentially flat for as far as the eye can see. The that haze of heat is kind of bordering the vision of what you can see, but it's very far off before the effect really culminates into something or to something obscured. Yeah, it's just this cracked earth. You're able to see still. There's not been any sandstorms in the past day, so you can still see the tracks of where the wagon has continued to go. A wagon that was once yours, a wagon that was filled with your belongings and various supplies that you've gathered before setting on this long trek. A wagon that you imagine was stolen from you.
As we follow the wagon's trail, are we following the right wagon's trail, everybody?
I follow you.
Okay, cool. So, as we follow the wagon's trail, with every step that Ashmodel takes, a little bit more sand works its way up her legs and her torso and down her arms, and eventually it's going to go up over her head, and she's going to try to make it so that she just has a visor out over her eyes so that reprieve from the sun.
And so, as you continue to cross and follow these tracks, they continue for at least another hour. At this point, it's been 2 hours out in the sun. So now the series would take 2 points of fire damage each. And the non-series would take another 4 points of fire damage. And you are now poisoned just from the heat stroke of this harsh heat. And so Ashmodel can have that damage from her tiefling blood, her fire resistance, but she's still poisoned from this. So poison means you've got disadvantage on some stuff. That's very, very useful explanation.
Attack rolls and ability checks.
Yeah. Essentially all d20 rolls except for saving throws. And as you guys are continuing along this path, you're able to easily follow the tracks of the wagon in the dirt. But there comes a point where you notice something odd. An event, essentially, on this uneventful journey. You see these large craters, perhaps 3 or 4 feet in diameter, one after the other, forming a path crossing like a T with the wagon's tracks perpendicular to them. These 4-foot craters kind of continue along in both directions, left and right. They seem old and weathered. Some are filled with sand and debris, perhaps by passing windstorms. They lead off farther than the eye can see in either direction.
How deep are they?
They're pretty shallow, perhaps like an inch or two deep, but they're like 4 feet wide. You can see that the ground beneath him is much more compressed than the kind of the cracked earth above.
Snarl basically takes no notice of them and kind of keeps trudging along.
Ashmodel made the decision last time of where they were going to go, so she's just going to sit back and let someone else decide which path to take.
So there's these fissures, and then there's the wagon tracks, right?
Yeah, they just kind of form a T intersection here, or like a cross.
I think One Whisperer would say, well, we need to find the wagon. I need to get my bag. And we need to find some sort of reprieve. I do not see anything but trouble if we head towards these fissures.
Yeah, Snarl he keeps going. He's not really paying attention to if the others stop or not, because those don't mean anything to him. But wagon tracks, but that's good.
So by continuing along the dragon tracks, again, one step after the other in this intense heat, it leads to more just debilitation by the heat of the desert. The searing heat of it just takes a toll on your bodies. But in the distance, you see a small shape. As you focus, you see that it's larger than a person. It's this kind of leaning structure, smaller than a building. As you begin to approach it, you see that it is a wagon, kind of askew, toppled, because it's missing a wheel. Kind of sinking, half sunk into the sand. It's surrounded by almost a dozen corpses as well. Corpses you don't recognize. Corpses garbed in much more, an armored fashion.
Do they look fresh and yummy?
So fresh, in fact, that one of them has an axe embedded in its head. An axe of crude iron lashed to a wooden haft.
Does Snarl notice anything moving around these dead bodies?
And give me a perception.
That would be a 9.
You don't see any movement.
Okay, so he's going to go straight to one of the meatiest looking bodies and start eating.
And it's delicious. The flesh itself is of a human. These are humans you don't recognize. Humans kind of dress as if they were raiders, plunderers. And so you kind of have to rip apart at their armor to expose their flesh, but nonetheless, you're able to get at it.
From my history with the Blood Knights, would I recognize any sigils on their armor or anything?
They have no sigils on their armor. It's just kind of scavenged and lashed together stuff of like animal hides and stuff. And who of you can read? Who of you are literate?
Hi.
So Ashmodel, you'd notice smeared in blood along the side of the wagon is the message, Iron Dogs was here.
Would I recognize the name Iron Dogs? Like, have I heard of someone called that before?
Can you give me a history check? Like,
That's a 4.
so imagine your upbringing far from these lands kind of makes you almost a bit naive about the lore culture, even like rumors or happenings of this area. Because you are a blood knight, or at least a former blood knight, and so kind of isolated in your upbringing. You have no idea what or who an Iron Dog is.
Got it.
We do notice that in your wagon, almost as all of your stuff, your former belongings. However, you'd notice that anything that was metal is gone. Any bits of iron, anything you've scavenged over the years, or weeks, or months, or what have you, that was made of metal, disappeared, gone. You're able to find amongst your belongings a little bit of food scraps and water skins of water. You see the broken wheel lying a few feet from the front kind of axle of where it came from. It's not too badly damaged, just one of its rungs is broken and it's a little bit splintered, made of wood, but easily repairable given time. And this is where we're going to end the session.
Okay. I was just going to say
mystery of.
I was just going to say, Snarl, once he's done eating, would kind of basically thrust the dagger back at Argoth. Not like throw it at him, but basically just kind of roughly hand it to him, and then he's going to grab that axe.
And so this was Dice on Ice with this very low kind of story game of survival in this barren wasteland. This is Scarbird's Caw, and thanks for nobody watching. Just kidding. Thanks for the few watchers present and future. Everyone have a good night, and I'm hitting this little end broadcast button.